behind and overlap. Go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Really excited about this financial education presentation with Morgan Stanley. I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Akil, our moderator for today. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, Casey. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Again, my name is Akil White. I'll be the moderator for today's conversation. Again, Morgan Stanley, Casey over at NoCap, and my panel in advance. So again, the goal here is to have healthy dialogue about finance, money, investing, whatever word you're comfortable using. Personally, I view this as really just knowledge sharing, right? The overall goal is to demystify and simplify the topic of financial education as a whole. And you can't really do that in one setting. So hopefully this is the first of many conversations you'll continue having in your respective parts of the country. For the viewers, I think it's good to aim and take 1 to 2 new ideas to consider or terms to research, right? Making those connections to music, movies, radio, conversations you've had in the locker room, at home, and on the internet. Ultimately, the concept is huge, like I mentioned earlier. So it's good to try to walk away with a couple gems that you can tap back into. Some of the topics are budgeting, saving, and investing. We believe those will be the building blocks to your financial future, but also applicable right now today, where you can go and action those. And a big idea for the talk is informed decision making. And again, that looks different for everybody, male, female, freshman, senior, no matter the age. We all have different lives. We all come from different backgrounds, and those decisions look differently. But moving forward, just like tonight, right? Whether you're going to go spend $30 tonight on Uber Eats or hop into the fridge and chef something up, how would that decision affect you tomorrow when you want to go out, or next week when the same thing? So just keep that in mind as we move forward. Again, my name is Akil White. I work in business development at Morgan Stanley. I just like my panel to introduce themselves, what they do, and just something that they splurged on growing up, or again in the past year. We can start with Shay.
Hi, my name is Shay Curtin. I am a financial advisor and Global Sports and Entertainment Associate Director at Morgan Stanley in Miami, Florida. I'm excited to be here and excited to be a part of this great panel. I guess one of the worst investments that I made early on was I had a car that had this big stereo system in it. I really liked bass in my music, and the bass was too much. It was like 210s JL audio, and the apparent magnitude of the bass was too much for the alternator on my car. And so it kept draining the alternator, and I kept having to buy a new alternator because I didn't want to get rid of the bass in my car. And looking back, that was not a good idea. The investment in the stereo system, which was expensive, and then the damage that it did to the car and the alternator. And you live and you learn. So now I'm stuck with the factory radio, and we're just going to have to make that work for now.
That's good. I got to turn it down next time.
Yeah. No.
Earl.
Turn down for what?
Earl, what you got for us?
Yeah, so Earl Crockett, financial advisor, Global Sports Entertainment Associate Director in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So by way of purchases, right? So I'm going to give you 2, right? One's more recent. The other one's a little older. The one that I regret the most, saved up, literally, I was a young man, maybe like 11, 12. You know, it's hard to get money, right? So whether it was raking leaves, shoveling snow, washing the car, doing chores, I saved up some money and got these tiny toy cars. And it basically was one toy car that sat on a remote and charged. Thought it was fantastic. It was great. My older brothers, who took advantage of me at any chance they could, especially when it came to money and at their own enjoyment, was like, he was like, look, you should get 2. And I was like, I don't really have money for 2. He's like, well, then save and get 2 because then we could play together. Saved and got 2. We were using them in the kitchen. I was super excited when I got home. He was super excited. We used it for about an hour, and then he was done and never played again, right? So now I've been saving for like 2-3 weeks. Every dollar I could get, got a toy that no one cares to play, and I'm playing. And it's not a fun thing to play race cars by yourself when the car's about this big. So biggest regret, the most recent splurge, which I will tell you I'm very frustrated about, I sat outside in front of a GameStop for about 3.5 hours in the rain, a PS5. It was a bundle, so it ended up being $810 after tax. And I will tell you this, I miss the days where you could just turn on a system and insert a game. Spent about 4 hours waiting for this system to load up and get ready for me to play, just to be informed that there's more updates to be loaded. 3 days later, I finally started playing any game. So I will tell you, delayed gratification is real.
Well, at least you're the lucky one. I'm still waiting on mine, Earl. All right. Sony doesn't want my money. Destrian, what you got for it?
All right. So Destrian Wells, Macquarie Asset Management. Earl, I'm not too far from you. I'm right here in the Philadelphia, Jersey, Delaware area, so tri-state. Let's see, man. I guess in terms of splurging, I talked a little bit about my fetish for Jabot jeans when we spoke briefly. But one of the things I did, like you, Earl, getting money is very difficult when you're young. But I saw on MTV Yo Raps that people had these nice gold watches and gold chains. And so I wanted one too. And so I used to flip omelets at the Waffle House, right? And I remember after about a month of saving my money, I went to the local jewelry store, and I just knew I had enough money to buy this watch, right? So I'll go in, I'm going to buy this gold Movado because I'm in love with it. This guy told me, you need to take your money and go to the pawn shop and buy it. I didn't have enough, but I went to the pawn shop, spent every dime I had on that gold Movado, got it stolen at school the very next
my goodness.
Very next day. So
no!
Hugely regret that. I'll take a page out of your book. I'll give you a second splurge. I cannot say on camera that I regret this one, even though she's probably watching it. My wife and I are expecting our second child. So everything we did for the first child, she now holds me accountable to do for the second. So we just had a baby shower this past weekend, and I regret to inform you of the total ticket price on that. But young men, young women out there, as Earl said, delayed gratification is real, and she just cut into her baby. She doesn't even know it.
Thank you for sharing that, Dustin.
You're very welcome,
Josh.
Josh. I feel like I have a piece of all of these stories, right? All the way back to the stereo system, the video gaming, new babies. Like I feel like all of those stories stick. But Joshua LeBlanc, Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm also a Global Sports Entertainment Associate Director here. Oh man, I want to say I can't say it's the worst because I've fallen in love with the game. So last year I really fell in love with golf. So I told my wife, I said, hey, listen, I have to go out and get a new set of clubs. My game is terrible right now. If I get a new set, I'm going to be so much better. So I go get fitted. And of course, they connect you with, and say, hey, you need to get this, this, and this, right? So I get a new driver, new 3-wood, all the way down to wedges and putter. Needless to say, the bill came out to close to $3,800. My wife doesn't know that. So if she watches this, she's probably
knows now, Josh.
But the game did get better, though. The game did get better. I'm not shooting in the 90s. I'm shooting in the 80s. So the game got a little bit better. But that was one. I can't say that I did not or I have, something against that expenditure. But it's something that I definitely spent way too much money on, for sure.
Wow. I think as I open with the biggest through line is differences in our past, but making informed decisions. Some of you maybe would do the same thing again. Some of you maybe not so much, but hopefully we learn from those moments. Before we hop into the questions, Earl, can you just let me know what Morgan Stanley is, what a financial advisor does in 30 seconds?
Yeah, so we are basically the personal personal trainers for your wealth, right? So our clients come to us about everything from, lending to investing to budgeting to planning. So, even when it comes down to insurance, we are their first stop. So, I think somebody described this as maestros, right? There could be different needs and different instruments out there. We try to organize it and give guidance anywhere and everywhere we can. And in most times, we can also execute on said guidance. So that's our job across the board.
Thank you for that. Destrian, can you just hop in and tell us a little bit about Macquarie and what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Macquarie Investment Management, I'm Vice President of Strategic Relationships there. And essentially what we do is we're business to business, so to speak. So the same way Earl, Josh, Akil, and Shay work with, you as the client, we work with them. They're our clients. We're helping them with best of breed product to bring to the market. So we're a global provider. We're based out of Australia, but we now have a U.S. headquarters in both Philadelphia and New York. And we're lucky enough to work with partners like Morgan Stanley to help bring you solutions in your day-to-day life.
Thank you both for that. I think we just hop right into it. The reason we're here, right, is the biggest change in the sports realm, the collegiate sports realm, is NIL, right, and the opportunity that's associated with. A lot of collegiate athletes up until this point, maybe the biggest decision they've had to make is what college to go to. Now, maybe that's changed, right? Maybe it's, do I take this deal? Do I not? Do I go left? Do I go right? Just in reference to potential NIL opportunities, because that's really what it is, right? Before, athletes could not make money or engage in that, and now they can. And now, again, the informed decision-making, what can be done with that? And ultimately, this is what that talk is about. So Josh, from the perspective of a former athlete and a member of the GSC team, can you talk about the importance of financial education? Keep it in mind, that informed decision-making and how it can affect you long-term.
Absolutely. I actually had a call earlier today talking about this very thing. And one of the things that I wish I had when I initially got drafted in 2004 was someone that I could actually reach out to that would give me then, pertinent information to help me understand that life isn't just about right now, right? To get a six-figure signing bonus, it's probably more money than my parents had seen at that one point in time in their life, right? But not being able to have that person to go to and say, what do I do with this money, right? And that's what's so important. And that's, what we do here with our clients is help educate them on where they are, where they like to go, and, what steps they need to take to ensure that they reach that goal. And being a former professional athlete and being in a locker room full of individuals that have, anywhere from millions of dollars to thousands of dollars, the toughest thing is to tell yourself no, right? To go into a mall and say, I don't need this right now, because the bank account says you can have it right now. So having that dedicated individual to, reach out and put together a budget for you, put together a financial investment portfolio for you is extremely important for the betterment of your financial life.
Destry, you want to add anything?
I certainly would. I would say that along the lines of what Josh was saying is understanding that just because you desire it, you don't have to have it. And oftentimes we go from a place of not being able to do things and have what we want when we want it. And so we become so eager to purchase. And my advice would be, if you see it 3 times and you still want it, maybe you buy it. But a lot of times I buy things that I never use because it's an impulse purchase. And so for me, the best advice I've gotten from a financial professional is, hey, if you see it 3 times, we'll talk about what we can do in your budget to allow you to get it. So impulse buys are off the radar for me.
I absolutely agree with this. So much stuff in my house that I just have, like this guitar sitting behind me. I mean, at the top of quarantine, I was getting at it, but now it's just there, collecting dust. Before we move on, Earl, Shay, you have anything to add just on financial planning, education?
Sure. Well, I mean, the more that you get comfortable with your own personal finances, and the premise and foundation of that is budgeting and saving, the more that'll help you in your future, and financial planning, budgeting, saving. It's important because of the freedom that it brings, not necessarily just because of the things that you could buy with it. and that freedom and that peace of mind that comes with knowing, how much money you have coming in, how much money you have going out. And it's that confidence and having that financial literacy foundation, there's a lot of power that comes with that confidence. And so the key to being more confident in that financial picture and your financial future is understanding what you're trying to build, how to get there, and you need a plan to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She covered it.
Yeah.
I think this is a reference what Destrian was discussing, just in delayed gratification, buying stuff that you don't need. I think I've told you this story a couple of times, just in reference to, again, I was one of 4 kids. I used to go into the store with my mom and just start throwing stuff into the cart. And she would always say, put it back. We don't have money for that. And that grew me into being a saver, right? And this again, the through line, informed decisions, doesn't there's no right or wrong way to be, whether you're a spender or a saver, just being cognizant of who you are and why you are that way. So again, you can make informed decisions down the line that'll set you up for success. Now I go and Trader Joe's and spend way too much money, but that's just another conversation. Shay, can you just let us know the importance of the importance of budgeting, saving, and investing?
Sure. As I just mentioned, those budgeting, getting an idea of what your income is versus your expenses is crucial. You've got to factor your savings kind of in an automated fashion as a part of your budget, because you always want to make sure that you have your savings for emergencies and as a cushion. It's, so with those things, then you take into consideration your financial goals. What are your long-term financial goals? What are your short-term financial goals? And, I'm old school. I like to write things down. So write those goals down and also, write down your budget and your expenses. And, your goals need to actually motivate you to actually cause you to alter your behavior. And from there, just visualize, yourself where you want to be and where that is for you. And imagine, what your life will be like after you've achieved those goals, and picture it and feel it and be really present in that moment, and keep your eyes on the prize and check in with your goals. And set timelines and stuff like that, and be present in that space though, and your goals have to be enough to really make you alter your behavior and be present in that space. And Kobe Bryant with Mamba mode, that's why he said he wasn't surprised when he won 5 championships, because he said he visualized it so much, that moment, and so frequently, and he felt that already. So by the time that it happened, he knew what it felt like. And it's because he had these goals and he planned to get there, and he put in the work to get there. And putting together a financial plan is the same way. You've got to plan, or you're planning to fail.
Yeah.
Building off of what Shay just said, Earl, as you deal with your clients and discuss setting up long-term goals, short-term goals, why is that, and what can that lead to?
Yeah, so I think Shay delivered the answer earlier on, right? And I'll quote an artist that, since we're on that path, money, power, respect, right? Like those are the big things that people want, and a lot of times they're interrelated. And so in this situation, right? So just to go back to the previous question, budgeting leads to you having the ability to save, and therefore with your savings, you can invest and grow said savings, which in essence comes full circle to growing your wealth, right? And I think one of the things that I always focus on, and Shay also mentioned this, is bifurcating those short-term desires or short-term goals. Destrian mentioned that as well, and then the long-term ones, because you want to make sure that the short-term ones lead into the bigger ones. So it might be something as simple as, I want to save 10% of everything I have. And then the long term might be, I want to buy a house, right? So those are intercorrelated, right? Like they're connected. So you got to do the first one to get to the second. And I think as you start recognizing that accomplishing the short-term goals are leading to those larger goals, they're going to be significant. And a perfect example for me was, I was dealing with a client, and he said he wanted to buy his mom a house, right? Recently drafted guy, single parent household. It's a very common desire, and the thought process was, how do you do this in a meaningful way? And I think the first thing he wanted to do when he got his signing bonus was to buy her a home. And I was like, well, let's take a step back. Let's take a beat. Similar to what you guys said before, is like, I know this is the first thing you want to do, but let's do this in a meaningful way. And it was, all right, let's figure out what the budget's going to be, how much you can afford, how we can finance this and work this in. And then eventually we end up not only using that address as his primary residence to save him money, but we also set his mom up in a way where it wasn't the first area that she wanted to be in, which was the area that she grew up in, right? It allowed her to kind of view around and find places, because if the first place she would have lived was where she's always been. And then she eventually found a neighborhood that was close but separate, where she got everything that she could have imagined and more. So sometimes that delayed gratification is so much more impactful than just the initial goal, which was, I want to buy my mom a house. And now she's got the dream home versus just a place.
And Akil, can I jump in on that real quick?
Sure.
So one of the things that I see so much, it doesn't matter the age, it doesn't matter the level of experience, even with financial professionals, the application of the information becomes where the success is, right? So the more literate you become financially, the more confidence you're going to have. It even gives you confidence to ask questions. And so as Earl was saying, you get the confidence to ask the right questions, and it puts you in a better situation long term. And so just like some of us, me included, you hate going to the doctor. What news are you going to give me today? A lot of people see financial professionals in the same way. I got to go see my financial doctor. But you're really getting a GPS. And when you get those coordinates locked in and you know where you're going, it makes the trip so much easier to bear, because you're no longer guessing. Like you guys said, you have a plan that you're executing, and you can start to get those small wins behind you, which then opens your eyes to all the other possibilities that are out there. And the sooner you start, the better off you are.
And I just want to say something, just because Destrin said something very important. Ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions, right? And going back to one of the previous questions that I was asked about, having a financial plan, me not having that person to ask questions to, but more importantly, not understanding what questions to ask is what created the situation that I found myself in. So I just actually read a tweet from an NFL player that just talked about that, right? You don't necessarily have to be a celebrity to find mentors that you can ask questions about finances, right? Investing, whatever it is you want to get into, make sure you find those individuals and don't be afraid to ask questions. Whatever the question is, ask it. There's no such thing as a dumb question, just one that's not asked.
I agree with that. We can park it for a second, right? Just in reference to the advice and asking questions. The quick question is, do you have to be wealthy to start? And just hypothetically, you can speak to yourself or speak to me for this example. If I have $500 every 3 months, right? What are some of the things that I should be thinking about or doing, or buckets of money, actions that I should be taking if that's what I have to work with, Josh? And then we'll go to Shay after that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a student, you have financial obligations. Whatever your scholarship situation is, if you have to pay for books, if you have to pay for meals, you have some financial obligations, right? So whatever that number is, responsibly, right? Because we can go out and eat $500 worth of food every single month, but do we necessarily, just to Destrin's point, have to eat $500 worth of food? Do I need to go to Trader Joe's, or can I go to Safeway, right? I can still get a steak. It just won't cost me as much, right? So first and foremost, we have to figure out, how much do I need to take care of the responsibilities that I have, right? So if that number's, let's just call it $200, then that money goes to that. So that roughly means we have $300 that we can put away, short-term savings, long-term savings, investing, etc. We just have to figure out what that number looks like. So for me personally, if I have $500, I'm going to put $100 into my long-term saving, my long-term investing, right? And if I'm able to do that consistently every single month, you will see benefits a year, 2 years from now that you would not have been able to see if you only put $10 in there. So to our point before, it's about being disciplined to say, I'm going to make sure that I put $100 into whatever investment vehicle each and every month.
Thank you, Josh. Shay, you wanna add in?
Sure. Yeah. When you're in college, it's a little bit different. I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together in college. And so that really motivated me to graduate and hurry up and get a job and join the working force. And then only to live paycheck to paycheck for many years after that. Yeah. And that was really difficult. So when you talk about having, $500, of whether that's, surplus of income. So whether that's after you've already met your expenses, whether it's your cell phone or whatever else you have, food throughout the month and that kind of thing. I would say definitely make sure, one, that you have savings. It feels like literally just yesterday where I knew that if I had a flat tire, it was the end of my world. And I was like, how the heck am I going to pay to get this flat tire fixed? Mm-hmm. How am I going to buy a new tire? How am I going to, if I am on the highway, how do I get someone to come and help me? Those things. So $500 at the time, and knowing that I had that, or even if it was a couple $100 in the bank, and I had that peace of mind knowing that if I had a flat tire, I'd be straight because I knew I had this cash to be able to help me get out of that situation. So certainly make sure you've got your emergency money on the sideline. And then after that, I would certainly say individuals who have credit cards already, I would say make sure that you're managing that debt from that credit card to the very, very best of your ability. If you can keep that credit limit within a 20-30% limit. I know it sounds tough when you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't have, much money at your disposal, but make sure that you keep that credit down. You don't want to let that get out of hand. You don't want to let that credit card linger at the top of your revolving credit line. It's expensive. It's very expensive. So if you have debt, so aside from, student loans or whatever, if you have any type of debt and you're paying any type of double-digit number, 10% or more, typically credit cards are the most expensive type of debt. I would say allocate some of that cash that Akil you alluded to towards managing that debt. And then after you have the savings and the debt under control, then I would say you can start to really consider entering your foray into investing your money and putting that money to work for you.
So we'll build off of what Shay just tapped into because it's literally the next topic. Let's talk about credit for a second. I know she touched on it a bit. We'll go to Earl and then Destrian. Just give us what is it? Why is it important? And you can maybe a scenario versus when you were younger versus now, and how it has affected you, I guess, throughout your life.
Yeah. So I view credit very simply as your borrowing report card, right? So people are going to come to you and let you borrow money. They want to know how trustworthy you are, right? How likely they're going to get your money back, right? And your credit score basically gives them a number to say, from 1 out of 10, this person's 9, i.e. good and likely to give my money back, right? Obviously, credit scores don't work like that. They've got a different numbering system, but that's basically all it is. And it's a report card, and it's forever, right? So it's almost like a permanent record versus just this year's report card. And I think it's so vital because you never know when you're going to need credit because there's so much power in that, right? Just because you're a good person doesn't mean you're good with money. Therefore, doesn't mean I'm going to let you borrow my money. And I think if you think about it in the sense of when I let somebody borrow money to me, like when I loan money to myself, if I was somebody else, that's a lot of times how other people are viewing it. And you're a stranger. So, I think credit's incredibly valuable for me, I think on a personal note, I had gotten a credit card very early on in college. It came with a pizza. I was very happy about that. But I had known nothing about credit other than credit cards are dangerous. And somebody was just like, just keep using it, but always pay it off, right? I didn't know that I didn't have a charge card, which is something that has to be paid at the end of each month. I thought that's what I had. I didn't have that. But I would buy like, $5, $10 worth of stuff, and I would always pay it off. But I built credit. And so that by the time I had graduated college, I had good credit. So when I got my first apartment in New York City, they said, hey, the rent was $1,850. And I was just like, all right, I got you. I got $1,850, and I had a roommate, so I was like, perfect. And they're like, well, we got to do, we need first and last month rent. I said, well, wait, that's a lot more than $1,850. And fortunately, they said, well, let's, if you feel comfortable us doing a credit check or background check, we'll see, if we can get away. And they were able to let us in for $500, right? Because my credit was that good. I had no idea what my credit score was. I was just happy that it came back, but it was the fact that I had gotten a credit card and had 4 years of history of always fully paying it. It looked fantastic. So, I mean, just on a personal note, that was my first interaction with credit, even though I had a credit card and didn't realize I was interacting with it, but it came full circle. And the fact that I had done the right things initially, it allowed me to save a good chunk of money and not put myself in a financial bind when I was moving to a new city for the first time.
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Earl, and I think you're very responsible, and I tip my hat to you. Now I'll talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls that can come with that from my personal experience. So I got my first credit card when I was probably 15. My parents put me on their cards to help me start to build credit, and that's something that I was really grateful for because it put me in a good situation getting ready to even go into college. With that, I then went out on my own, though, right? And so now I'm on the campus of Tuskegee University. And like you said, you go to every student union, there's someone there waiting to sell you something or to get you to just sign up for something. I'm signing up for everything. I can go to spring break now. I can do whatever I want to do. I'm good, And to your point, I wasn't exhibiting those habits that had been instilled in me. Pay it off, pay it off, pay it off. So I got to a point where I literally had to call home and tell them I'd maxed them all out. They told me, we're not paying any of it. Wow. We're not paying any of it. You're going to pay this. You're going to eat this one. And so I took everything I had from work study, everything I had been saving, right? So you guys talked about savings. Why is it important? Because winter is coming. You're going to do something to yourself or life is going to happen to you. In this case, it was self-inflicted, right? But because I did have the habit of saving, when this happened to me, I was able to dig myself out. Fortunately, because those balances were not what we're probably looking at today by being, working adults. But it was a big thing for me to have to, come up with $5,000. But I was able to do that because I was a saver. So I was able to get myself out of that hole, and it really taught me a lesson. And throughout the remainder of college, I was much more like Earl, and I was very diligent to the point where I graduated. Earl, you talk about purchases. I went right to the dealership. I walked in and I was like, I want that one. And they couldn't believe that I was able to get it on my own because my credit was good enough for me to do it. And it actually saved me money. And I think that's another thing that people need to understand. When you have poor credit, you actually pay more. So you're spending money like you're wealthy, when in essence, you're only going into more and more debt. And so it costs you more to have bad credit. And that's really important for people to think about.
One quick thing I want to add in there, and I think Deshrin kind of touched on it, and it's the exact number I give everybody example. $5,000 is not a lot to have, but it's a lot to owe. Mm-hmm. I think that should resonate. Anybody who's ever had a credit card, that'll resonate because when you owe money, the interest causes it to move in the opposite direction. You owe more and more every single day. Yes. Whereas when you have money, it doesn't grow like that, right?
Very true.
I mean, if you're lucky, it'll grow well, but it will never grow like a credit card grows.
And that's compound interest working against you, right? And you don't want that. And what you have to save to make up for what you've lost, you can't save another $5,000. you're talking about a number that's far bigger when you really do the math on that. So please don't do what I did. Be like Earl.
So real quickly, Josh, Shay, how do you, I guess, switch the bad credit around, right? How do you build it? What is it comprised of? Just give us a quick snapshot of what that looks like.
I'll let you go, Shay.
Sure. So credit cards, it's not free money, and it may feel like that when you get your first credit card and you're like, wow, these people think that I am worth, $5,000. Like, that's really cool. And meanwhile, you don't have two nickels to rub together. And so it's a test, right? And again, it's not free money, and it's easy to swipe, but it's expensive. It's expensive debt, and you've got to absolutely be smart with it. And rule of thumb is if you can't buy it at least 2 times with cash, you shouldn't put it on the card. And this is your you get one time to really mess it up, and then once you go into that hole, it's really, really hard to get out of that hole and to redeem yourself. So it's expensive money, and sometimes these credit institutions, these financial institutions that are lending you the money, they're betting that you can't pay it off, and that you dig yourself into a deep hole, and they're going to be able to, have this high line of credit that you've maxed out, and they're getting maximum interest on it, and they're banging you over the head every single month. And, even though we're in a low interest rate environment where it should be cheap to borrow money, credit cards and being in debt is at an all-time high, and those interest rates, the money that they charge you to borrow that money from them, is at historically high points. So it's tricky, and you've got to be smart, and you've got to be responsible, and don't get lost in the sauce and excitement when you get your first card and think this is free money and it's so easy to swipe. They know what they're doing when they send you all of these offers in the mail. And my first recommendation from a personal standpoint is that my first couple of credit cards, I didn't have any type of rewards tied to my spending, whether it's, cashback rewards or, credit for airline miles and that type of thing. And my best friend did. And so now she gets to fly first class, round trips in Europe because she upgrades with her miles that she earns from her credit card points. And I don't have any of that. And I just have good credit and no first class upgrades. So I'm sitting in the back of the bus with my 6 feet long legs in my chin. And that's my personal problem. I understand that. But if there's other people on this call that are over 5'5", having that extra leg room counts. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Sounds like
absolutely. Josh, you want to tag in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Shay said something very, very important. When it comes to actually using a credit card, use it, in my opinion. The only thing I use my credit card for are things that I have money to pay for. And what I mean by that is the only thing I use my credit card for are my utilities, my groceries, gas. So things that I have cash for, and to Shay's point, I use the card in that way just to earn the rewards. But just like Earl said, I pay it off actually before it even gets to the statement. Right. So that's why it's very, very important to be very responsible. And I'll give you a personal story. Just recently, my wife and I went out and got a new car. Now, the car she wanted, right, initially, the dealership thought she couldn't get. But we were able to get a car that was actually $20,000 more than the initial car price because of the credit rating and the interest rate that we received. Right. So instead of us paying what they thought we would be paying 4%, I was able to go to my credit union and get 1.9% as far as my interest rate. So having good credit allows you later on in life to get the things that you worked your tail off to get. right? You never want to be in a position where you are financially able to purchase something, but your credit won't allow you to purchase, right? You don't want to be where you made some mistakes in the past that'll impact that in the future.
That point exactly right there, right? Having the funds, but the credit is holding you back. I think it was at the top of the summer we were dealing with the client. It was a first round draft pick. I think it was moving from New York to like California. Just signed a $14 million contract. He didn't have the money right now, but it's on the way. It'll be here next week. Long story short, his credit was literally zero because nothing was ever in his name. No credit card, of course, no cell phone bill, no apartment. Again, sometimes having no credit is just as bad or worse than having, bad credit. Ultimately, he couldn't get the house, even though that he can pay for it in cash. And that's another conversation just about debt and reasons why people get mortgages and such. But staying on the topic of credit, he couldn't get it even though he had the money. And that's exactly what Josh was just referencing there.
Okay, I'm going to throw something in there real quick. So just to go back to the initial thing you said for steps, right? So if you've already gotten past this point and you're trying to look back, say, hey, I can't go backwards, annualcreditreport.com. It's on the IRS website. That's a place where you can get a free credit report. So remember I talked about it being a report card? You can go to annualcreditreport.com. You can get a free credit report, and you can figure out exactly what is holding your score back from being great. Then go address those items, right? Call people, reach out to them. There are agencies that help improve your credit. You can reach out to one of the big three, so Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These are reporting agencies that track your credit, and these are the people that they're reaching out to when they're asking for your score. So a lot of times people just say, oh, well, just start paying your bills, get your credit cards down and balance, and that all helps, right? So if all your bills are paid, a lot of people are like, I've never not paid bills. That's not the issue. It's your credit card balances are often too high. So let me give you an example. If I've got 3 credit cards, $1,000 on each, right? And that's my limit. And on each card, I have $500 on each card. That's a 50% utilization. That is a high utilization. Anything over 1/3 is high. So the goal would be to keep it below 1/3, if not completely paid off, right? And so even if I have $1,000 on one card and $1,000 and nothing on the other 2, I have one card that's maxed out. That too works against you. So think about it that way. Keep your balances low. If you need to spread it across multiple credit cards because you don't have all the money right now, that's fine. But the goal is to try to keep them lower. That'll also help improve your credit score. And that's that.
And get something where you get rewards.
Rewards.
I bought a car recently and I had the money to buy it, but I had them put it on my credit card and then I paid off the credit card right then. I was like, run me my points. Thank you.
The points definitely come in handy.
Yes.
Let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about investing. Likely the most uncertain thing is the stock market, right? You can't time it. I think Destrian mentioned it earlier, compound interest, and what is that and why is that important? Josh, you can start.
Yeah, so you said something right there. It's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. And where you are currently in your life, $100 being invested into the stock market today, 50 years from now, is going to be something that you're going to be thankful that you did, right? So when it comes to investing in, as we've said before, interest accruing each and every year. To that point, if I invest $1,000 and it goes up 8%, then I've made 8% of my money, right? But now going into next year, instead of that 8% accruing at just $1,000, it's actually accruing on top of that. So that means it's accruing at $1,008, right? So that's where, interest compounding each and every year is something that works into your favor, just like Earl said, when it comes to the credit card debt, right? It could actually work against you on credit card debt. So when you're looking at investing, understand that you're investing for that to grow over a period of time, not just for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. You're looking years and years down the road.
Destrian, we can hop over to you. You want to add in?
I would just simply add to what Josh said is I would think about this in terms of sometimes just setting it and forgetting it. we've become so addicted to being able to check our balances right now. As relates to investing, I think Earl touched on it earlier. Shay talked about it as well. You have short-term, intermediate, long-term. So your cash, your liquidity, that's completely different from your investment. You need to have a long-term mentality, and you need to have an approach. And I'll use a word. Some may know it that are on the call, but I know you all know. I would encourage you to think about staying in the market for a full market cycle. The market will not let you down if you just simply stay in for a full market cycle. You don't have to time it. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be patient. Be patient.
Question real quick. What's the full market cycle?
So for most investors, that would look like 5 to 7 years, specifically if you're not looking at retiring, where you're going to be looking at annuities. So we're talking about, your college athlete, college student, young professional. You should be looking at 7 to 10 year type of investments anyway, at least as a part of your long-term plan. And if you have a job, you look at a 401k, they may have some target dates out there for you that are going to plan for you from today to your ultimate retirement date. So there are tools and resources where you don't have to figure it out. But more importantly, there's Josh, there's Earl, there's Shay, there's Morgan Stanley, and you have people that can actually hold your hand and help you better understand what it is you need to be looking at.
And I just want to add something right there, just because if I had someone like myself back in 2004 when I got drafted, if I just would have put $15,000 into the S&P back in 2004, that $15,000 would be worth more than what my signing bonus was today.
Real quick, Josh, what sport did you play, and what's the S&P 500?
Perfect. So I was drafted as a professional baseball player by the LA Angels back in 2004. So the S&P is comprised of 500 companies that they feel are fitting within a certain realm when it comes to the type of company, right? So we call it an index, right? So it's diversified of, like I said before, over 500 different companies. That comprises of companies like Apple, Amazon, etc., right? So once you invest your money into that particular ETF, that means you have a certain percentage of all 500 of those companies. So if I would have done that, my $15,000 would have been diversified between those 500 companies. Yeah, trust me, I'd be in a different situation if I would have had somebody like that.
So Josh, you're saying that now that Facebook or the metaverse is now $1 billion+ company, Tesla is $1 trillion company, Google, Apple, Netflix, you go on and so forth, just by simply taking the initiative to say, I'm going to park it and wait, you could probably walk away.
Absolutely. I've done the math. I don't want to say the number.
Please.
It's a very nice. And just think about that. That was, roughly 17 years ago. If I just put $15,000 on my sign-up, that would not have hurt me. $15,000 would have taken me to a much different place today financially. And I think we've lost some people.
It might be the flow of the connectivity coming through, but I can kind of see what Akil had teed up here. So we can take it back to Shay until Akil and Earl can come back on. I know one of the things that Akil wanted to discuss or talk about as it relates to, we talked about compound interest, but in terms of financial advice, he typically asks, what type of financial advice have you received that allows you to make more sound decisions, or have you received some advice that you wish you would have gotten when you were your younger self that you're currently applying today? Sorry for that, Akil. I jumped in real quick. I don't know if you heard me. Okay.
No, I had some tech difficulties. It's all good.
Yeah, I would say financial advice that I've had received when I was younger that has really stuck with me and benefited me is always live below my means. And again, I hate to bog down everybody with credit stuff, but be mindful and careful with your credit and your credit score because your credit worthiness is super important. That's kind of one of the major things. And another thing I would say also to my younger self, especially when I was in college and I was really broke, was to not compare myself with others and not use not gauge from the outside looking in, they look like they get to do this and that. They're going on spring break trips. They're doing all this fun stuff. And I didn't have any money to do any of that. And so I used to kind of beat myself up about it and be upset. And, why couldn't my parents give me money and that type of thing? And I wish I didn't do that. It ended up making me stronger and certainly more resilient and give me an edge and make me want to go out and get it even more by myself. And now I'm proud of where I am and how far I've come. And I didn't, get this to where I am by any type of handouts. And I did this all on my own. And so I don't resent, that part of my life as much as I did back then.
Josh, you can hop in there.
Yeah. So when it comes to the advice that I would give myself in the past, it would definitely be, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Because I know a lot of people that have made a ton of money and don't have near as much money as people that have made less money over their lifetime. And that's where working with financial professionals that are respected and ethical will help you get there, right? But most importantly, you got to find someone that's trustworthy. But that by far would be the greatest lesson that I would teach myself. But one more would be utilize credit only for things that will help you make money. And what I mean by that is using credit to buy a house, right? I understand that you may have to buy a car, but early on in life, to Shay's point, sacrifice, drive the Honda. There's nothing wrong with driving a Honda. You don't have to get a used 6-7-year-old Mercedes just for appearance. Get you a brand new Honda that costs the same amount of money. It's going to cost you less money for upkeep. That will allow you to invest in yourself.
Don't put the bass in the car unless your alternator can handle it, though.
Yeah, that is true. Or get a kill switch, one of the two.
Yeah.
Dexter, you can answer. Yeah.
All right, I'll jump in here. I would say I would have told myself to begin with the end in mind, and really understand how to properly set goals. It's not that I wasn't goal oriented, but I didn't think big enough, so to speak. And maybe you all can relate to that. I would make these goals and hit them. I was making goals that were safe. I knew I could hit them, and so I would have began with the end in mind. So one of my mentors, he trained to be an Olympic rower, and he told me, he said, I wanted to make the Olympic team, and I did, but I peaked there, and when I got to the games, I didn't perform. I didn't begin with the end in mind. So when he went back, he said, I want to make the Olympic team, I want to be captain of the team, and I want gold. And he went back and he accomplished those things. And so it really put me in a position to think about beginning with the end in mind. So, I would offer that to my younger self, and also to anyone who's listening.
That's really important. I just say sometimes you don't know the right questions to ask, right? But just, again, ask the dumb question, ask the stupid question, do the research. And as Destrian said, again, start earlier, whether it is $500 imagine you bought one share of Facebook when it came out back then, or whatever it is, the $200 you have, the $500, just testing it out, of course, doing the research up front to see what works for you, and just starting. And one final question for everybody, we can just go around the horn. Similar to the last one that Destrian just posed, what advice would you give yourself, again, in college as you look to join the workforce? I know we all took different paths, sports, some others, or one piece of advice, one book to read that you personally read that helps you, I guess, take that next step in your financial journey.
I'll kick it off, and I'll just kick it off quickly. I read a lot of books, whether that be I can't say I read the actual book. I'm on the tablet or whatever, but one that I revisit often that I got in college was Good to Great. And it really, it made me realize that, you could be decent at a lot of things and you could do well, but ultimately you want to try to tap into something that you're great at. And so this book talks about, what can you be the best in the world at? And for most people, they forget to be themselves. So tapping into your authentic self and figuring out your passions and fueling that by your authenticity. And I thought, Good to Great was a book that not only will it help you understand yourself financially, but from a personal development standpoint, I think it offers a lot for you to start thinking about a career path.
That's a really good book. And before we even continue, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We can address them at the close. Shay, you can go ahead and chime in next.
Yeah. Advice coming out of college, career advice, that type of thing. I was not, it was really hard to get a job coming out of college. That was like the worst. And I really wanted to help people. And I knew that was my passion. And my mentor always said, if you do something you're passionate about, the money will come. And so I wanted to help people on a broad scale. So I interned at the United Nations, realized that wasn't exactly what I had hoped it would be. And then I had an opportunity to get a job at a nonprofit organization coming out of college and got my first paycheck. And it was really, really depressing. And I was in tears, and I, called my dad. I was like, how am I supposed to live off of this? And he's like, it's great that you want to help people, but you have to help yourself first before you can really be of any use to help others. And so I wish he would have given me that advice before I started that job and wasted 2 weeks and made $367. But here I am now, and I get to help people on a broader scale, and I get to keep a roof over my head, and that's really important. And the book, I guess, that really was a game changer for me was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That really helped me, especially, coming out of college and going into the real world and getting, office jobs and, networking with people and having those interpersonal skills were crucial in how to really get personal growth, professional growth, and as a result, monetary growth. So I think emotional intelligence, that type of thing was interesting to me at the time, and certainly investing in that and reading about it certainly helped me financially.
And Josh?
Yeah, for me, obviously, becoming a professional baseball player was my goal, right? That's what I aspired to be since I was 6 years old. It was either that or NFL. I actually played both. But once baseball was over, I had to reassess my life, right? I was, 29 at that time, about to be 30, figuring out what did I want to do. And more importantly, I would tell people, don't just necessarily look at a job title, look at the job description, right? You want to be doing something that you really love to do. And for me, I broke it down to 3 things. I'm a problem solver, I'm very analytical, and I enjoy talking to people. And those are the 3 things that I do each and every day. So I can honestly say when I wake up, I enjoy my job because it's based off of the job description, not the job title, and not for the monetary end result. Because the better I become at my job, just like Shay said and Destrian said, the more money I will make. But I love what I do because these are 3 things that I'm passionate about.
That's a way to close, Josh. Wow. Whew.
Drop the mic, Josh. Moonwalk out there.
We'll pause for a second if there's any questions. I'll piggyback on everything the panel has said. It was books for me. It was The Millionaire Next Door, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is very base level, but again, it conceptualizes, again, money coming in versus money going out, and really get your a solid footing. I just want to take a second to thank Macquarie Investments, Morgan Stanley, and No Cap Sports for being able to put this thing together and having this sort of open dialogue about finance. Again, just feel free to share your LinkedIns if anyone does want to reach out and further the conversation. Josh, Shay, Destrian, and then we can close out in the next 30 seconds. Shay?
I'm sorry, what my last parting?
LinkedIn, just share your parting words and your LinkedIn, just for follow-up purposes.
Yeah, holler at me on LinkedIn. I'm very accessible. I'm super active on LinkedIn. I am only allowed to post Morgan Stanley stuff, so it's perhaps a little dry, but I post a lot of it, and there's some good stuff in there sometimes. And again, my name is Shay, S-H-E-A, Curtin, C-U-R-T-I-N, Shay like the stadium, Curtin like the drapes. Holler at
I like
your
that. Josh.
She's done that a few times. So my LinkedIn is obviously my name, Joshua LeBlanc. Morgan Stanley picture looks just like what you see on the screen right here. Not sure if we can share any other social media, but I have other social media as well. But what I would share with each and every one of you all that are collegiate athletes, which I was, it is important to not only begin to network, start with your alumni, starts with your teammates, because some of my teammates are now clients. But more importantly, do what's right for people, because you never want to burn bridges with people, because you never know where, number one, that relationship will take you or where that relationship will end you. So start building your network right now in college.
Yeah, I didn't get to give you my little gem. I'm going to piggyback on Joshua and say, do the right thing, especially when no one's looking. It'll always pay off.
And Destrian?
Yes, all right. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Destrian Wales. I'm not sure there's going to be many other Destrians out there for you. So you should see me. I will not have the beard that I have today on there. In my infancy.
Pre-Rick Ross concert.
That was pre-Ricky Rose. I guess I would say that just to kind of wrap this whole thing up, relationships are your most invaluable currency. Like literally the most valuable currency you have. So cultivate them, build them, and just remember that the 5 people that you spend the most time with, you will become the 6th one of them.
It's amazing. Thank you, Destrian. Thank the entire panel. I think Earl had to drop or we lost him. Thank Earl. Earl Crockett is his name. He's on LinkedIn as well. And again, of course, thank No Cap Sports for putting this together.